First, I'll just say very few times do we actually get to do a job that we actually love, and then there's less of us that actually get to do that job in a place they love. So, that's kind of where I am right now. Coach Brown asked me to come back a couple months ago, and I started March 4th, and so I've been, a country boy from New Bern that grew up a Tar Heel fan. It's been great to be able to come back here and start working. So with that, I'll kind of open it up, and you guys can fire away any questions you may have.
What were those discussions about as far as bringing you in? And I'm sure you have a lot of opportunities, and you've been doing some of the radio stuff. What were those discussions like, and is he allowing you to sort of shape that job the way you see that job needs to be?
So, obviously Coach Moody had the job previously, and he kind of, had the blueprint of kind of in general what that job entailed. My conversation with Coach Brown is basically, here's the thing that Coach Moody did, but, feel free to chime in anywhere where you feel like you can help us or make us better. And so I told, sometimes when I have some things I want to, tell Coach Brown, I tell him, I know my title is senior advisor. You don't really need my advice, so I'm gonna give you my opinion. And that's what I do. I just give him my opinions, and then it's kind of up to him what he does with it. But, that's kind of my role, to kind of see things, and whether it's from a personnel standpoint, whatever it may be, and just opine on it and have conversations and start conversations with that, but also respecting everybody's role in the building and not being overbearing with it.
With that, Coach Moody had experience, obviously, as a scout and doing some stuff in the NFL also. Mm-hmm. Is the twist that you put on the job is that you were recently, not that long ago, playing. You went through what a lot of these kids are going through now, not that long ago. So there's a relatable factor that you bring that is very valuable to those kids.
It is, but time goes by fast, and 15 years has been, I played 15 years ago, but and when I say that, I know it doesn't seem like, but I do think the fact that I have played, and not only did I play in the league, but I also played college football here, right? And I played for Coach Brown. So, so when Coach Brown was interviewing me for the job, I told him bluntly, I said, Coach, there's no other person that you can hire that is more qualified than me. Having played here, having been from North Carolina, having played in the NFL, having scout, having coached high school football, I said, I am the most qualified person for the job. And it's good that you could hire me having played for you, but at the end of the day, I really felt like I was the most qualified person for the job.
Right. How can you be, a positive ear for the guys who want to go to the next level?
I'm sorry, what was the first part of that?
Yeah, how can you be a positive ear for the guys who want to make it to the next level?
For me, it's about giving those guys advice, being honest with them, and then also what I try to do is help those guys become more self-aware, right? Because as a player, that's the number one thing you have to have. You have to have self-awareness, understanding the things that you do well, understanding the things that you don't do as well, and understanding what I need to do to become a better player, right? And so those are the conversations I try to have with those guys. And this first month or so has really been about walking around the building, talking to guys, trying to let them feel comfortable, get to know me, and not just start talking about football. Like all that'll come, and allowing those guys to have a certain level of comfort, because I can't just walk in the building and assume that those guys are going to give me credibility and the trust is going to be there, right? So, you just got to have personal conversations. I had a text from a kid about, was the last weekend, and I hadn't had a whole lot of conversations with him, and he just said, hey, Coach, I want to come up and talk to you one day. And that, that felt good, because that's what you want. You want them to come up on their own watch, and not having to drag them up and just come up there and have a conversation with them. And I give those guys advice, but part of it too is just listening and learning from them, understanding where they come from, the things that drive them, and what's important to them.
Right, along those lines, I was going to say, if you were making a to-do list, if you're a list maker at all, of things you wanted to accomplish as soon as you got here, like what would those things be, I guess in addition to walking around and just
honestly, I'm sorry for cutting up. Honestly, the only thing that I had on that list was to get to know the guys. get to know guys, and when you walk in the building and you got to try to learn 120 names along with the staff and the coaches, it's a lot, right? And so that was the main thing, just getting to know the guys, being able to put a name with a face. I'm still in that process, but honestly, that was the number one thing, because I can't do my job and I can't help a guy if I can't relate to him. And the only way you can relate to people is if you know them.
Where do you see this going for yourself? Like, do you have a vision, an end goal?
My end goal is right now just to do the best job that I can do here. I'm not a guy that takes a job to worry about the next job. I feel like if you do a good job at the one you have, if a better job is down the line, then it'll occur. But for me, I'm happy being at the University of North Carolina. I took this job with it. If this was the last job that I took, I'll be okay with that.
In an era where kids are more impatient than ever because of what's out there and what they can do, the freedom of movement, you didn't have that option.
No.
You redshirted your first year and kind of figured out during that time what kind of football player you were going to eventually be.
Yep.
How much now, when you're dealing with kids that are kind of fidgeting, itching to either play or leave, does that experience help you in order to show them, here's the blueprint for being patient, it can work for you?
I talk to them about that all the time, the guys that I talk to. So not only did I redshirt, but they redshirted our whole class. So that means I redshirted, Greg Ellis redshirted, Jess Saturday redshirted, Kay Mays redshirted, Omar Brown redshirted, like the whole class. And I tell them, in my class alone, we had 2 consensus All-American. We had 3 guys that played over 10 years in the NFL. We had 6 guys that get drafted. We had another, 5 guys that was all conference. And we all redshirted. Not only did we redshirt, but the next year, we didn't get any play. We played special teams. And so what I tell those guys is, don't worry about playing. Worry about what you do when you play, right? So don't worry about just getting snaps. Worry about when you do play, making those snaps quality ones and then earning more snaps. And if you worry about that part of it and not worrying about just playing, then it becomes a process and it's a progression versus just expecting to get what I want from the very beginning and then having to fight off being satisfied with that.
This with the NFL draft coming up, I understand you've kind of talked to some of those draft eligible guys. Mm-hmm. How do you kind of go about quote unquote like tailoring different advice to certain guys? Because obviously like someone like a Drake Mays experience is going to be different from somebody else. Like how do you kind of go about
basically just knowing that, understanding that different people will have a different experience with it, and no experience is any more important than the other, right? So if you're an undrafted guy or if you're Drake May, right? When that team calls you, that experience is the same thing, right? Obviously there's different ramifications between going top 5 or being a free agent, but for that guy, that's that opportunity that he has. So just understanding kind of what hole they fit into. So like on the Zoom call, it was a little different because I feel like most of that is kind of tailored to the guys who may be undrafted, because there are more variables in that process for them guys about understanding team needs, understanding, making sure you keep track on who's getting drafted at your position with that team, and then also doing the homework pre-draft, understanding what is my best opportunity, where's the place that I can make a team, right? It's not a guarantee, but at least you don't want to walk into a building where you don't have an opportunity to make a team based off of numbers.
I guess as a follow-up to that, how much has the draft process changed from obviously when you were playing to now, or has it even changed much? Like, is it as simple?
I mean, at the heart of it, it hasn't changed much. I mean, there has been some change just in terms of media involvement, but at the end of the day, hopefully there'll be one team that calls your name, gives you a ring, and they'll draft you, and then from there you have an opportunity to make a team. Everything else is kind of irrelevant, right? That's kind of comes to the core of it. So that hasn't changed a whole lot.
Ron, what are the most frequently asked questions that you hear from the NFL side of it about these guys who are now your guys? Like, what are the most common things they're asking you?
Well, so my role, so I'm kind of on the back end of this group, and then on the way front end of the next group. Yeah. So I haven't really had those interactions with the scouts about our guys yet, being a pro liaison. But I do know that in terms of being a scout, when you come into a building, Now with technology, like if you scouted 20 years ago, you had to go to the school to get the film evaluation. Now those guys don't have to come into the building to get that evaluation. So what I tell our guys is when they walk in this building, they're not walking in here trying to figure out if you can play football. They can do that from the hotel room. What they're trying to do is they want to talk to position coaches, strength coaches, athletic trainers. They want to understand, what is this guy? Is this guy a professional in his approach? Does this guy love football, right? And not does he just talk about loving football, but does he go about his business in a manner that reflects that thought process?
You were a scout, so is one of your jobs here maybe to scout these kids as an NFL scout would scout them to help provide some of that internal feedback?
Absolutely. That is part of my job, and Coach Moody did the same. You know, watching film and practice, watching practice habits, watching game film when that comes about. And I'm kind of lucky having the background of doing the radio for the past 7 or 8 years. So I've seen every game live. I've missed probably 3 because of hurricanes. And then so if not having watched the game live and watched the tape, I've at least watched the tape. So all these guys that have played, I've watched them play. So I have that experience, so I've already have a general knowledge of what they are. But that was one of the first things that I did when I came in, when I had time just watching tape of game tape, and then kind of form an opinion. And then that way, when I talk to them, I can tell them specifics about what I see.
When you get on the Zoom with them this Wednesday or whatever it is, what is the one thing that you would tell the whole group of guys who are going to be drafted or free agents? What is the one thing that you want to get across to them?
Well, we had a Zoom, like Coach Brown said last week, and this Zoom will be more of, hey guys, here's an opportunity. If you forgot anything you want to ask, if anything came up that you want to know, here's an opportunity. But what I would tell them is the number one thing you need to do is enjoy this process, because no matter how long you play from here on out, this day, these 3 days, it only happened one time in your life, and you're here now. So enjoy the process, regardless if you think I was supposed to have been a top second round pick and I go third round, or if I was supposed to have been a fourth round and I go sixth round. Wherever you go, that's where you're supposed to have been. So enjoy the process. Don't go into it with too much anxiety. Enjoy it, relax, and have fun with your family.
Is Coach Moody still kind of helping smooth you into things?
No, so he and I, talked on the phone a couple times at the beginning, but, as you know, Coach Moody, once he's gone, he's gone. And he tells me, if I need him for anything, give him a call. So, he and I talk periodically, but it's more of like if I have a question for him or anything. But he and I, over the last couple of years, he and I have talked a lot. And, Coach Moody recruited me, and he was almost the reason why I didn't come here, because he told me I would be a fullback. But that's what I tell him all the time. But no, he's been very open to helping. But Coach Moody, he told me every time he says, I'm taking being lazy to another level. So, he said I get up around 12 o'clock, and then from there I spend the next 2 hours trying to figure out what I want to do the rest of the day. So,
more power to him.
yeah.
That's awesome.
Brian, Mac told us that among the different conversations you had one with Travis Shaw, and he made it seem like the talks with you, the talks with Ted Monachino are sort of resonating with Travis. I mean, could you maybe share with us just some of the things that you tried to impress upon him when you got with him?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to take credit for that. Travis has done a great job of, with his practice habits and being a leader. My thing is, I just wanted him to realize what his potential is and not being satisfied with not reaching that potential, without talking about specifics. Yeah. But he's done a great job this spring. He's practiced hard every single day. He's been a leader. He's been full of energy. So he's been a good personality and obviously a good player to have around.
And potential is such a word with him ever since he came out of high school. I mean, do you think that maybe he's starting to make those steps to maybe getting there?
I think so. And listen, all these guys, every single guy that's in this building, it's about potential, right? Because none of these guys, even if they're here 3, 4, 5 years, when they leave here, none of them will have reached their full potential. And as a football player, that's the mindset you have to have, right? Because as soon as you think you are as good as you're ever going to be, then you stop working to develop, and you stop trying to push yourself to get better, and then you become comfortable. And then once you get in that zone, you're only going downhill from there, because somebody else is going to get you. And so what I told him, when I was a player, I always worked scared. Always worked like there was somebody else out there that wanted what I wanted, and if I took a day off, they were going to be working to get it, right? And so that's why I never miss workouts. I never miss anything that I can totally control. I try to control it, because once you get on the field, there's going to be a lot of things that's out of your control. So everything that's in this building, that's in the classroom, in the weight room, that you can fully control, you got to bat 1,000.
Right. I guess I have to, you haven't played the linebacker position in the NFL. I guess I have to ask about Cedric Gray, who's obviously looking to do the same thing. Where do you see, I guess, kind of his game, his play style? Like, how do you kind of project that to the NFL? I
mean, his skill set, his size, his athleticism, his speed, all that translates well to the NFL, right? He can run, he can hit, he covers ground well, he makes plays, he's smart. He's a guy that I think can fit in any scheme. So I think he'll have a great career. And on top of that, he's a guy that's very passionate about football. So I'm excited to kind of see, where he'll go and kind of how his career end up.
Is he a guy that, obviously you haven't watched, a lot of his games. Is he a guy that you've been able to kind of give pointers to, like here and there and anything? I haven't,
because even though I've done the radio, I haven't. So usually when I've done the radio, I get on campus and I go straight up to the booth. I wasn't around, so I didn't talk. And sometimes, having played, but they didn't know me like that, right? So I'm always really careful about pouring yourself onto somebody if they don't, really know you or not comfortable with you, and kind of allowing that relationship to happen organically.
Does he remind you of yourself at all?
He does. He really does. Yeah, he does. He's probably a little bigger than I was, but he does a lot. He's long, he can run, he can make plays on the football. He does.
How much does character factor into NFL evaluations now? Is it more than when you played? And how do you communicate that to the kids? As a sidebar to that, I know that in basketball, a lot of guys who work in recruiting for basketball, they get called by NBA teams to ask about character and what they've seen at these camps and hotels and stuff like that.
No, it's big.
How much of that is your discourse with the kids?
It's big, and I show guys. I have, I show guys reports that I actually done when I scouted, and when I show them the report, you do a character report and you do a play report, and the character report comes first. And I get them to understand it. And there's two portions of the character too, right? There's personal character and then there's football character. And so letting them understand the importance of that, and then showing them that, look, the first part of this report, before we even start talking about what kind of player you are, the character report is first. And I told them there's only one reason really, or two reasons why NFL teams will take you off the draft board. And it's because you have some significant medical issues, or if you have significant character issues. I told them, if you're a really bad player, you'll stay on the board. You may be very low on the board, but you'll stay on the board. But when you're talking about millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars, there's a lot of guys, like Coach Brown talked about, the amount of guys playing football that want to get drafted. They just move on to the next guy. And the one thing about coaching is, if they don't trust you, they won't play you. And that's another message that I try to give these guys. Like, a lot of you guys want to play to show the coaches that they can trust you. But what you have to realize, coaches have to trust you before they'll play you. And so, just getting those guys to understand that. And if you have a guy who missing class and don't do this and don't do that and doing this wrong, coaches, you're not going to earn the trust of the coach. And if they don't trust you, they're not going to play you.
Fully understand that you, when your playing days, were trying to take quarterbacks' heads off. But with Drake, what are the things he will have to navigate in becoming a franchise quarterback and becoming the automatic face of a franchise when he gets drafted on Thursday night?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just, obviously, when you're a really good college quarterback, the spotlight is on you. But when you're a professional quarterback and you're the franchise quarterback, then I liken it to being the CEO of a company. And everything you do is being judged, everything you do is being evaluated. And so not only are you, supposed to be the most important player, but you are the figurehead of that organization. And that's why I say there's a difference between playing quarterback and being the quarterback. And when you're being the quarterback, that's doing all the, being the CEO, being the figurehead of that organization. There's a lot of guys that we've seen get drafted and they just play quarterback and they fizzle out. And so, that is the difference. On the field specifically, it's just going to be the speed of the game. And that's for every young player. The speed of the game is so much more. You have to be able to process things a lot quicker, but all that'll come with time and reps.
Do you think, just having observed him from the radio booth or wherever, been around the family, do you think Drake is prepared for the being the quarterback part just because of his pedigree?
The pedigree doesn't give you that. That would take away credit from him. He will be prepared because that's how he has prepared. If you talk to anybody in the building, you won't get them to say otherwise. He's been professional in his approach. He's been a great leader. He understands that he has to operate differently while all along being one of the guys. And that's kind of the hard tightrope that quarterbacks have to do, right? They have to be different than everybody else because they're seen different, but they also everybody else have to feel like they're one of the guys. And Drake has done a great job of that.
Yeah, the one of the guys part is not a big hurdle for him, it seems like.
Right.
Drake,
Yeah. No. Is that it? Everybody good?
You guys good?
I guess just, I had
Yeah.
one quick question, so sorry. Just what is one, you talked a lot about the advice you're giving to the guys, but what is one piece of advice that you wish that you received as a player here, maybe when entering the draft?
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, maybe for me, what I try to do is enjoy it a little more. I mean, I felt like I did a good job, but really embracing it. And I think one of the things that I didn't do as well as if I could go back and do it again was maybe involving more people that had a hand in helping me get to that point and letting them share that experience with me. I kind of kept it small because, I've always been kind of lay low type guy, but not only is that a special day for yourself, but it's a special day for, any coach that ever coached you. For me, any family member that's ever fed you, you ever spent the night over. So, I wish I would have did a better job at that.
When you were taking this job, did you hear from any guys that you played with here or people that were here then that were like, what was the reaction like from them? Were they excited or giving you a hard time about it?
Definitely excited. I mean, that's the way we were, and as we all were when Dre Black got hired here, right? Because we support, each other. We still got a thread of, a couple threads of 40 or 50 guys that play here together. And I was just thinking about this the other day. So on game day, when things didn't go well, Dre Bly was the hit man. He got all the negative texts. And so I was thinking the other day, I'm like, oh crap, I'm that dude now. So so hopefully we'll get things right and keep it right on the field so there's not too many negative texts going on game day.
It must have been interesting.
Great stuff, Ryan.
All right, appreciate you.
Yeah, good to talk to you. Good to
rest of
meet
the
you.
week.
We'll see you soon.
All right.
Get my hands on one of those. Thank you.
Oh my God.